Welcome back to the channel, guys. Let's get straight into today's story. Prime Minister Keir Starmer and his government have just performed yet another policy U-turn, this time on inheritance tax for family farms, and it lays bare a deeper truth. This Labour government is out of touch, unstable and reacting to pressure rather than leading. In what looked like another example of Labour forgetting rural Britain, the Chancellor's office was preparing to tighten inheritance tax rules on family farms. But after a fierce backlash from Tory backbenchers, rural MPs, farming organisations and even some Labour MPs in farming constituencies, the government was forced to backtrack. Starmer's team raised the inheritance tax threshold for farmers back to a more palatable level, essentially saying, oops, never mind. Let me unpack this for you, because this isn't just a simple policy tweak, it's a sign of weakness and confusion at the top of government. First, let's be clear about what inheritance tax changes were on the table. Family farms, often passed down across generations, had already been under pressure from rising costs, labour shortages and red tape. Many of these farms operate on razor-thin margins. Inheritance tax reform was supposed to help modernise the system, but the proposed changes struck rural communities as out of touch and economically damaging. It didn't take long for the outrage to spread. Tory MPs led the charge, accusing Labour of betraying rural Britain and smashing into a community that already felt squeezed by business rates, energy costs and environmental compliance costs. Even some of the Labour benches warned that this would cost votes in places that Labour can't afford to lose. And so Starmer's government blinked. They announced a reversal, essentially admitting the rollout was flawed and unpopular. The fixed higher threshold will stay for family farms. The message from Westminster: we heard you, now stop complaining and move on. But this brings up a much bigger point. Why was this even in the budget plan to begin with? Let's be honest, this government has shown a pattern of launching headline-grabbing tax changes without fully reckoning with their real-world consequences. We've seen small businesses groan under the same policies. We've seen landlords and publicans shout about being tagged with tax hikes that make their survival harder. And now we see rural communities feeling abandoned on farm policy. A government that is truly competent would have consulted widely before proposing a change that affects one of the oldest forms of British inheritance, family farms. Instead, we see a reactive government scrambling to placate critiques after the outcry has already happened. This isn't leadership, that's damage limitation. It's also illuminating when you compare this U-turn to the way the government handles other issues. On migration, for example, we continue to see promises that nearly fully materialise, like the Rwanda policy being scrapped and replaced with vague tackling the gangs. But when rural voters get angry over taxes, that's when Labour shifts course immediately. What does that tell you? It tells you that the Labour does not have a consistent philosophy or economic strategy. It tells you that the government is constantly in reactive mode, appealing to media narratives and political pressure rather than choosing firm principles and sticking with them. And this isn't just about farming communities, it's about voters everywhere watching a government that one day tells them to tighten belts, accept higher taxes and take tough medicine, and the next day crawls back when it sees organised pushback. Ordinary hard-working people are left wondering, who is this government actually working for? Rural voters aren't some fringe group, they're on the backbone of British culture and economy. Their farms feed the nation, they maintain our countryside, they are community hubs, and yet Labour initially threatened to chip away at their ability to pass down family legacies without thinking through the consequences. Compare that to Starmer's Christmas message of unity and to reach out to others. It sounds nice in a speech, but when you're literally proposing reforms that would hurt British families in practical economic terms, it starts to seem like empty words. People want competent, principled government, not a leadership that zigzags wherever there's a fuss. And this is part of a wider narrative we've seen throughout 2025. Mounting illegal migration figures with more than 41,000 small boat arrivals, backlash from pubs and small businesses over business rates and economic policy, public service strikes and NHS struggles with leadership scrambling, polling numbers showing Labour weakness as voters lose confidence. The farmers' inheritance tax U-turn is another piece in that puzzle, a government that looks increasingly unsure of its own agenda, lacking the courage to statistically defend its policy choices and bending over every time a pressure group or opposition MP raises a stink. Critics will say that U-turns are good, that listening to voters is good. Sure, responsiveness is a virtue, but there's a difference between listening and having no conviction at all. A government with conviction does through policy work, anticipates consequences and communicates its rationale clearly before it launches into damaging reforms. The government keeps putting the cart before the horse and then acts surprised that people react negatively. At the end of the day, family farms are not just economic units, they're a symbol of Britain's rural heritage. The fact that the government had to be dragged kicking and screaming into fixing their policy on this tells us everything we need to know about Labour's priorities and political instincts. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want more honest political commentary and don't want to miss what's really happening behind the headlines, hit the subscribe button and drop your thoughts in the comments below.